Hey everybody, Rob here. Welcome back to the KCC channel. Today we're going to jump into some ProRevenge. Our first story today comes to us from Bleedin' Fingers. Abuse my position and force me to quit. Enjoy your thousands of dollars in fines. Let's jump right in. I've talked about this a fair amount, but my previous job was as a sous chef for a well-known place on the Lower East Side of New York City. This is the sort of place that would charge hundreds of dollars for bottle service. It is primarily a nightclub, but they had some somewhat competent kitchen. On more than one occasion, they would host a party and forget to black out how much they were charging before giving the kitchen the information. Oh, we're cooking hors d'oeuvres for 100 people on floor 1 for 2 hours? Wait, they're charging these mother effers $20,000? Point being, they made an insane amount of money. I was hired at $58,000 a year salary, which is the most money I've ever made, having spent the last decade of my life working in various New York City restaurants in pretty much every position you can think of. Prep cook, bartender, busser, general manager, doggy style, you name it. The only jobs I haven't done so far are executive chef and front of house or floor manager. When I was applying for a different job, I was offered this position at a location other than what I'd shown up for, and I decided I'd be crazy not to take it. Well, it was billed as mostly days and 5 days a week. I figured I'd be working around 45 hours a week since my salary was the minimum unpaid overtime salary in New York City. There were no benefits involved, which is unsurprising in the industry. What it turned into less than a month into my being there was Tuesday through Sunday and 55 to 60 plus hours per week. In the 7 months I was there, I saw the chef cook maybe 3 meals that weren't for management staff meals, and one of those was scrambled eggs. He had me taste them, and they were so damn salty I made a face. For all his BS about clipboard chefs, he was a prime example of one. He also worked 6 days a week most weeks, but one of those days was literally just showing up for manager meetings. Now, I know what you're thinking, but let me tell you, I have done his job. I've done food costing, I've done ordering, I've done payroll, I've done all of the things you would expect a chef to do outside of cooking. This mother effer spent half the summer in the nice, air-conditioned office. We got along all right at first, and it seemed like he knew his stuff. Come to find out, it was all theoretical. The guy took an online culinary course. I honestly have no idea how he reached the position he was in. As time went on, I took more and more responsibility. His relationship with several staff members deteriorated significantly in the time I was there. I was not good at playing both sides, and so didn't get along particularly well with the management, even though much of the staff viewed me as part of them, and therefore the enemy. That said, I put a lot of time into streamlining things, and nearly everything I proposed to make things simpler for the prep and line cooks became standard operating procedure. Long story short, I was killing it. I was also killing my back. We're talking 2 or 3 14-hour shifts in a row every week, from Friday to Sunday, open to close. Lots of heavy lifting from putting away deliveries. Half of the time, I didn't even have time to run around the corner for a smoke and a coffee. On Saturdays, the entire team usually had about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to relax between brunch and dinner service. I was lucky to get a full half an hour, and often would forego that break to make sure everything was ready for dinner service. Meanwhile, this butthole is criticizing me for things not being done in a timely manner when we're a man down on the prep team and he's just sitting in the effing office. I'm 6'3", and at the time I weighed 190 pounds soaking wet. Just because I didn't have time to eat on Fridays and Saturdays, because that time was spent cooking staff meal. At least I looked good naked for a while. In my 6th month, November 2019, we were about to roll out a new menu. This had been in the works since at least September, but I had seen none of the new food and had no idea what was being planned. I find out the chef is going on vacation for a week and a half and will be gone for 2 weekends in a row. Literally 2 days before he leaves, the new menu drops. I don't remember exactly how many dishes I had to learn from prep to finished table-ready product, but I think it was between 8 and 12 between the 2 menus. Side note, I had requested one night off to see my favorite brand, Daughters, live in Brooklyn a few months prior, and he told me that's probably not gonna work. I usually go out of state to see my grandfather around then. Long story short, it was absolutely the most stressful situation I've ever been in my life. By all accounts, I effing killed it. I ran the show as best as I could while he was away, and the problems we had were extremely minor. As soon as he came back, I realized the dynamic had changed. Now, he viewed me as a threat. He became increasingly critical of every single thing I did. He started being outright rude to my face. I'd been trying to get health insurance through work, but they kept giving me the runaround. One time, they literally just printed some 20 pages of medications covered by one of the plans offered, and when I pointed this out, they said that they would get me the proper information later. Never happened, obviously. Less than a week after his return, we got hit by the health department. Of course, as had been the case since I had been hired, the walk-in refrigerator was not nearly cold enough. We probably threw out thousands of dollars of food, and there was no doubt a huge fine on top of that. I don't even want to think about the wasted labor cost. During the inspection, the chief turned to me and asked, "How could this happen?" I said, "I know, terrible timing as usual." And he said, "No, I mean, why didn't you tell me there was something wrong with the walk-in?" I had been telling him about this issue multiple times per week every month. He was fully aware of the issue. I had text messages from while he was on vacation the previous week where he asked me for an update, and I straight up told him, "We need a technician to fix this now." At this point, I was just about done. I kept on asking when the 5-day week would come, and the answer was always soon. I kept asking about health insurance, and it was always, "We're working on it." I had told the chef no fewer than 10 times in that 7 months that I couldn't keep going at this pace because of my bipolar. I had a really fun thing called dystonia from a medication I used to take that is sometimes triggered by stress. I stutter, shake, and have involuntary muscle jerks. Not great when half of your job is using a knife. It got to the point where it was happening multiple times per week. After one of these episodes on a Sunday, I got my crap together and got back to work. He walks into the kitchen and starts spouting off about how the quality of my work is subpar for his kitchen, as if he would even know at this point. I told him, "If you're not happy with my performance, I can put in my notice." His response was, "Spare me the drama." I put in my 2 weeks notice the following Tuesday morning while doing prep, and was immediately sent an email response saying, "That's fine, you don't have to come in." I told my coworkers, if I'm not getting paid, I'm not sticking around. I only put in notice so you guys wouldn't get effed all at once, said my goodbyes, and went on my way. At first, I was just relieved. I'd been ready to move on from this industry for years by now. I decided to take some time off from work and just relax. I filed for unemployment, appealed the decision, and was granted those benefits. I gotta say, that was nice at first. As time went on, I just got angrier and angrier about the absolute BS I dealt with just to come out the other side with no reference and nothing to show for all the damage I had done to my mind and body. Well, on top of that issue with the walk-in that I mentioned, this place was effed. We had a serious rodent problem. One died in the ceiling and they just sort of added a layer. I don't know what actually happened there, but there was a doorway near the kitchen that smelled like rotting death for a month. There was a back prep area that didn't have proper ventilation. The walk-in in that area was only in order when I took care of it myself once in the middle of the week, and on Sunday after brunch, also me. I couldn't even guess how many violations existed back there just from the rodents and the improperly stored and dirty pans, storage, etc. back there. That's not the fun part though. They had a fake door covering it. No joke, it was a hunk of wall on wheels in dry storage, and when the health department showed up, we were supposed to slide it over so they wouldn't see the second walk-in or prep area. Absolutely bonkers, never seen anything like it in my life. I have no idea what they were thinking. So after stewing for about a month, I decided F it, and I called the health department. The woman I spoke to said, "I'm not even sure how to report this. I've never heard of anything like this before." They no doubt had already paid thousands of dollars for the issues from the prior inspection, and since the health department comes back within the month, if you don't accept your grade, they almost certainly thought they were in the free and clear. I can only imagine the pandemonium of yet another inspection when they thought they had 6 months to get things in order. Last I heard, that chef had been let go and his name is no longer on their menu. There are multiple public Yelp reviews talking about the health department shutting them down and causing terrible service from them about 2 weeks after I called. Then COVID hit. They're still open somehow, but at least their pockets are a little lighter for my trouble. Also, daughters were awesome live. I don't know about you guys, but I think this sounds absolutely normal for the service industry. Burn them out, replace them when they quit. Standard operating procedure, honestly. It surprised me that the lady at the health department hadn't heard of this before. I'm sure they've seen some things that we can only imagine of. Do me a quick favor, take a look under the video. If that subscribe button's still red, it means you're not actually subscribed to the KCC channel. Please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories. Our second story today comes to us from TTROSC. Bakery had my mom's car towed, so I got the business closed down. Let's jump right in. This happened about 8 years ago, 2013, and when I tell people the story, I get mixed reactions. So I figure, why not tell Reddit? My mom and I decided to go out to lunch one day. We drove until we found a lot that's business did not appear to be open at the time. My mom pulls into the lot and parks in a spot. We both walk over and investigate the business's window. It was a pastry shop for purposes later in the story. The lights are not on, the door is locked, and there is a sign that says closed right behind the door. We conclude that they are closed and went to eat our lunch. We finish eating about a little over an hour later and come back to find our car was missing. But now the bakery was open. My mom and I walk inside of the bakery and ask if they had seen our car. The owner, with a very stern tone and attitude, said, "Yeah, I had it towed because it was taking up spots for potential customers. You should have come inside to ask me first." My mom responds that we did attempt to see if she was open and even buy something to see if we could park there for an hour or so. She calls us liars and said she had been open all day and we never attempted to ask. My mom just basically said we tried and that it was wrong for her to tow us with so many other spots still available. The owner said something back to my mom that really upset her and made her cry. All while this was going on, I was taking mental notes that this bakery and pastry shop was having ventilation and insulation work being done. The insulation worker, who I can only assume was a random contractor and not a specialist, was doing the work right over the prep table for the food, all while smoking a cigarette. As I go to console my mom, I turn around and tell the lady her sign still says closed, like when we originally came to the door. She storms up to me, picks up the sign, and slams it around to open. "We are open now." I calmed my mom down and we eventually got the car back from the tow company and got home. Once we got home, I was angry that lady made my mom cry. So I wanted revenge. I called the health department for the city. I say exactly what I wrote above to the guy on the phone, who puts me on hold and tells me to repeat everything I said word for word to his director. I tell the director the story, nothing about the car being towed obviously. I was a concerned citizen. She verifies the address and location with me 3 separate times. Yes, the name was X. Yes, it was across the street from this restaurant on this street. She then tells me that she shut down that business in the week prior for plumbing issues, insulation, and multiple other infractions. She was told she could not be open and operate a business until the plumbing issue was fixed and approved. Told me she would handle it. Later that night on the news, that business was being shut down for good for all the infractions, and I could see my mom looked so confused and happy at the same time. Like karma worked for her that quickly. Told my mom years later, and she loved it. So the one thing I noticed here was they left the store sign on closed. Was that because if the health department showed up, they could just say, "Oh, we're not open and serving people. We're actually closed. Can't you see the sign?" Our last story today comes to us from Astacass. One-party consent recordings, the kryptonite of butthole supervisors. Let's jump right in. I'm a paramedic, and after many years of working regular ground ambulance, I decided I had enough. My whole career, I was either a glorified Uber driver, being spit on by drunks, bit by meth heads, or chauffeuring people between hospitals. Though once in a blue moon, I saved a life. There isn't a lot of different jobs you can parlay an EMS career into, so I elected to move into the private sector and got a job doing basically the same thing at a mine in a remote environment. Worked 2 weeks straight with 2 weeks off, less stress, and an enviable salary. On the surface, this was a sweet gig, almost heaven compared to the regular stretcher jockey job I came from, and it would have been such if not for the absolute psychopath who managed the EMS services out there. I didn't work directly from the mine's operator. Instead, I was employed by a contractor. The coordinator, my local boss, as he was called, was a golden boy as far as the mine company was concerned. There wasn't a butt he didn't kiss or a bigwig he wouldn't suck up to, and I admit he could be charming, quite adept at impersonating a human being actually. It wasn't long before I discovered he reserved decency for everyone but his subordinates. His behavior started out as pretty micromanaging, which was irritating, but then progressed to insults, put-downs, name-calling, "Hey dumbass" was his usual way to get my attention, and outright hostility. The man clearly enjoyed being a small-time workplace despot and knew he could get away with it because of his reputation with our paymasters. It was around the 2-month mark before I really warmed up to my coworkers. There were 8 of us, including myself, and the dipshit in chief, and not single one of them spoke a nice word about him. Most were resigned to him acting like a massive C because the 2-week holiday every month along with the pay rate. They also told me every complaint only fell on deaf ears, provoked retaliation, and again, his relationship with the client made him nigh untouchable. This is when I started recording everything and did so with these 2 assumptions. 1, the company would only act with serious proof of malfeasance. 2, his acts of bastardry would only escalate. Neither assumption proved false. I had nearly 3 months of audio tapes of him just being his regular butthole self before he went too far. About a week into the shift, I showed up to our station and was called into his office, only to be informed I was being let go and my replacement would be there in a few hours. I was to go back to our accommodations, pack my crap up, and report back there. Well, F, I thought, before doing as I was bidden. Upon arriving back to the office with my suitcases, this sadist started laughing and said, "No one's coming to replace you. You're so effing gullible." It was a mock firing, and I'm sure he feverishly pleasured himself to it later that night. I was livid and let loose on him, finally ending a tirade with a malicious hint. Can you imagine what the office would do if they could have heard all this BS? Unrepentant to the last, he coldly stared at me before replying. Can you imagine what they would do if a bunch of empty beer cans turned up and I told the office I saw you drinking? Having recorded all this and knowing my glorious victory was assured, I find capitulation to carry on with my day. My first day off, I sent in a detailed letter to the company, along with recordings, and as expected, they fired his butt. What came after was righteous cackling laughter for hours. I wonder if this is how Napoleon felt after winning at Austerlitz. OP says they only heard of the firing after the fact and would have loved to have been there to see it. Wouldn't we all though? If you were the one who caused them to be fired, you just love to be a bug on the wall, seeing what happens when they get walked out. Thank you to all 3 OPs for posting their stories in the ProRevenge subreddit. They are linked in the description down below. Please go check them out. Check out one of these other videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories.